I'm an A&E doctor in North London.
Right.
And I have to say that morale sort of on the shop floor is pretty low.
Okay.
At the moment. At the moment, the hospital where I'm working at, we do have we do have PPE, but
Good.
it is quickly running out.
Right.
So things like surgical masks. I believe we have now run out of those, and we're now using the sort of higher spec masks for patients that haven't tested positive, and we have a slight suspicion that they may have coronavirus.
Yes.
We're using more sort of advanced masks now, which is obviously not appropriate. If we're not that concerned about coronavirus in them. So it is just, morale is quite low at the moment.
What about the question of testing? As an A&E doctor, can you give us a positive account of why it's not happening on the scale that some people think it should be?
I'm a little bit. Personally, we've not been told why they aren't testing. But my personal feeling is that there is kind of an acceptance that everybody on the front line is going to get coronavirus and probably has it. The test.
For anyone who's just tuning in, Anjali is an A&E doctor. So one thing we never do on this programme, but especially at times like this, is put on ill-informed or unqualified opinion about matters of life and death. But that's terrifying, what you just said.
Yeah,
and in the absence, just to make a clear point for everybody, in the absence of an official account or an official explanation of why something is happening, the vacuum that is created, anything can move into. But for an A&E doctor to tell us that you think it's just a sort of a surrender to mass infection, which means that people currently treating people with coronavirus will also be passing it on to people who don't currently have coronavirus, that's like a definition of madness.
No, that is a real concern amongst a lot of doctors, and I think you're right. There does need to be somebody who is giving us a reason as to why we're not being tested. We've been told that they're trying to get that out, but the tests are there available for patients. So, why are they not available for frontline staff?
And is it as simple as some suggest that if, for example, my friend in a GP's practice who wants to go back to work, and I heard of yesterday a hospital in the south of England where the head of COVID-19 response is now self-isolating because one of his sons has a cough. His wife's a radiologist. They're both out of the game. Neither of them have any symptoms. They're self-isolating according to official advice. But if they could be tested quickly and it came back negative, they could be back at work much more quickly than they will be otherwise. Does anything in that explanation or that story ring untrue to you?
You have to think about sort of the sensitivity of all the testing as well.
Of course.
Just because somebody's tested negative doesn't necessarily mean that, they don't have it. And patients are in hospitals who have tested negative, but we still are suspicious that they do have the coronavirus, are being retested because we just, we don't really know what the sensitivity is.
There's a second test for negativity, one test for positivity.
Yeah.
But even there, it doesn't address the worry that people, the sensitivity and the length of the testing notwithstanding, if they're not doing it at all, people can't get back to work when they've got an all clear, because there's no all clear available.
No, exactly. I know that some hospitals are introducing sort of emergency rotas now, so that doctors are working sort of for 7 days on, and then they're having 7 days off, and they're just alternating in that sort of pattern. And I think that's probably due to the acceptance that, we all probably will get it, and then we'll need 7 days of isolation. They'd rather that we're at home, and we're supposed to be at home during those 7 days when we're sick.
It's 14 now, isn't it?
So for healthcare workers, we've been told that it's 7 days.
Right.
So the rules are different for healthcare workers.
Naively, you'd think, I appreciate the simple logistics behind this situation, but naively you'd think that healthcare workers would be following the more stringent regime as opposed to the less stringent one, wouldn't you? Because of that danger of them infecting.
We are exposing our patients, but I think it is all due to the kind of staff shortages.
Shortages?
Yeah, so,
Yes, of course.
we already are quite short on staff.
And then
Maybe
it's
just them on the
exacerbated
front
by
line.
this. So you start off from a low point and it just got lower. Finally, and I hope you can answer this, but no problem at all if you can't. What can we do, members of the public, to perhaps affect some sort of incremental improvement in what you've just described as staff morale? If we find ourselves encountering healthcare professionals, if we find ourselves in hospital, or if we just know them socially, what can we do just to make you feel a bit better about everything?
I mean, I think people are already quite aware of what we're having to put up with, as being on the front line. So I think people I've come across have been very thankful, very polite in A&E. So I think just check if you know anybody who works in the NHS, just checking in on them, making sure that they're okay.
Yes.
Just a simple text message or a phone call. I think that's sort of a nice touch that people could do.
And it does matter, doesn't it? It does. I did that yesterday with a friend who is self-isolating, and you could tell that we all presume somebody else is doing it, Anjali. Someone else. Anjali will have been in touch with him. They'll be fine. But actually, you can't have too much love, can you, when you're feeling alone?
Absolutely. I think it's important not to forget that there are many people, so it's not just the doctors and the nurses, the cleaners, the people who work on reception, the people who work in IT, all of these people are vital to the NHS sort of working. So I think it's important not to forget those people as well.
It is. And it's also important to remember that there are no catch-all answers to these questions. There are no objective algorithms for best practice. But the more we look at what other countries are doing and compare it to what continues to happen here, then that combination of relief that we're finally escalating, we're going through the gears, that was the analogy I used at the beginning of the week, but we're not having our confusion addressed about the whats and the whys. And when you hear from an A&E doctor with Anjali's insights, you realise how important that is. Even if it involved standing up today and saying, look, we got it wrong at first, folks. If he needs to throw in a folks, that's fine. But we're going to get it right now. But it's this continuing confusion. Unless you're not confused, in which case you know what to do.